Our next speaker co-won the Node Ident last year and has gone on to superstardom since, working at Animate in London and speaking at the Maxon booth at SIGGRAPH this year. For all things topology and dinosaurs, please welcome home Jessica Herrera.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today on homegrown turf. Like, I've been in London for the past year and so happy to see everyone, all my lovely favourite faces. Thank you so much, for James, for inviting me, and thank you, sponsors, for running this event. Thanks everyone for coming. So if you don't know me already, my name's Jess Herrera, also known as Herrerasaurus online. I'll tell you a bit more about my story, but I've been living in London for 1 year now at a really awesome award-winning studio called Animate. If you guys don't know them, they do super cool character stuff. And I guess I'm going to show you a bit of what I can do. I'm going to show my quick show reel. Thanks, everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about myself and how I became this strong, independent dinosaur. This is supposed to be me. So today I am going to have a little bit of a personal story about how I got into the industry and tell you a bit about my story. So first off, I talk about me as a young baby. This is obviously me. Actually, no. This next slide is me. This is some really terrible photos that my mum took of me, of these photos, because back in the day there was no digital. But sorry about the quality. I haven't been at home to tell my mum how to do things properly, but yeah, anyway. As you can see, I was quite a creative kid. These are just a few of my embarrassing photos. But I'm going to show you quite a lot of my drawings from when I was younger. Also, sorry about the quality because my mum took these photos on her phone. And it's kind of hard to ask your mum to go through your stuff and hope that she doesn't see anything weird in my drawings. But majority of my drawings were dinosaurs, and these are a bit embarrassing. I don't know what age I was, and to be honest, I don't keep a track of how many drawings I've done in the past, but I have probably about like over 50 books just laying around in my parents' house that I was just like, yeah, just go for it, take photos. And then I realized, wow, I was very obsessed with dinosaurs. But as a young kid, I also not only drew pictures, but I was quite creative with making models out of things, or wire, or clay. But again, it's hard to ask my mum to go through all my boxes and tell her, can you please get that thing out and take a photo? So sorry, that's not in my presentation. This is all I got. But one cool thing that my mum did find was this book I'm very proud of. I spent probably about 2 years drawing every single dinosaur I found in every single in every single dinosaur book I found in the library. This was before I discovered the internet. And they're very full-on descriptions about each dinosaur or like prehistoric mammal. And then I started going into weirder creatures once I started getting a bit older. Here's some more detailed dinosaurs and more dinosaurs, getting a bit more creative with how they looked, and even creepier dinosaurs. But I actually discovered the Herrerasaurus maybe when I was year 7, I think. And then I became more obsessed with dinosaurs and started drawing the Herrerasaurus. This is a Herrerasaurus with feathers. This is a Herrerasaurus with its babies. And I'm not going to bore you with any more Herrerasaurus drawings because I've kind of gone over the top with my dinosaur drawings. But yeah, more drawings, but not of dinosaurs. I also was very obsessed with marine life. I was obsessed with all animals, but in particular marine life. Swimming was like one of the only sports that I was good at. And I just thought, as a young kid, I want to be a marine biologist. That was my thoughts of how I was going to, go to uni in Queensland, because Queensland's my favourite place in Australia. Sorry, everyone, but it's lovely weather. And I wanted to research these amazing animals. But then I realised quickly that I was actually really bad at writing and reading. And being a scientist, you have to write a lot of essays and all that kind of stuff. So I decided I wasn't going to be a scientist, even though I love science, still love science. And I'm going to get real deep here. I was bullied a lot when I was younger because I was kind of not intelligent. I was a bit slow at school. I couldn't read at the same level as everyone else, and I used to have to do a lot of extracurricular activities inside of school and outside of school just to keep up with the kids. I remember doing a spelling bee and I spelt million wrong, and my team got very angry at me, and then I wasn't allowed to play with them at lunchtime. And I also couldn't tell the time until I was in year 7. And I still can't tell my left and rights. I almost failed my driver's license because I took 2 wrong turns, and they told me if I took another one, I would fail. But I didn't fail, so it's okay. But I have the support of my parents the whole way through my schooling, and still now today. They really helped support me, try and tell me that there was nothing wrong with me, that I was just as smart as the other kids, even though I worked so hard. And I was, especially in high school, I used to freak out that I was going to fail my exam because it was all written and I hate writing. But yeah, I owe it all to my parents for really supporting me there. And when I was at high school, I had to do to pass my year 9 with IBL, I think it was called. I had to do a personal project outside of school. And everyone's familiar with personal projects. But as a young kid, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that outside of school. But we were supposed to do 40 hours of work on this. I did a picture storybook, which took me way over 40 hours. And I painted A3 images. This is 2 images put together. It's kind of cropped off with this sizing, but also sorry about the photography. My mum took photos of the actual raw images and not the picture storybook. She couldn't find it. But yeah, I never, ever showed anyone my artwork up until this point. I was quite quiet about my work. I was actually a very quiet kid, which is surprising now because I won't shut up. But at the time, I was super scared of putting myself out there with this project because art was the only thing that I could express myself, even though I wasn't doing it in front of anyone, but my parents could see that I would express myself a lot with drawing. And as you can see, as I love marine life, I put this in my picture storybook. And this went really well with school because you had to there was quite a large written component to this project, and I was like, I'm gonna fail. I have to prove that I'm better than writing an essay. So I went above and beyond on this project, and I actually passed really high on this because of my efforts. And I think there was a lot of written content about the process, and I quickly learnt, I designed everything myself. I don't have any of that work with me because, again, my mum would have to go through all my stuff. But yeah, I'm happy to show this off. I think it looks terrible now, but at the time I was like, oh, I'm okay. And this is the first time I thought I can do design. But I also didn't know at the time I was very dyslexic. I didn't find out that I was dyslexic until I was in university. And to me, this is a really personal thing for me. I don't like, occasionally it might slip up in conversation, but a lot of my self esteem issues stemmed from being dumb and being slow. And up until I found out that I was dyslexic, even though I really didn't want to go for the test, I just thought, no, there's no way I'm dyslexic. I am just really dumb. But when I went to get the test done, I was extremely dyslexic and I read at a 9-year-old level, which is funny because I used to babysit my cousins at like round 6 to 8, and they are really good at reading. So it's really embarrassing. But I've kind of come to terms with my intelligence now. I got to admit, like, people used to think it was crazy that, oh, you're dyslexic, but you went really well at high school. And I was like, yeah, but I put in so much effort, extra effort, to just not pass. Like, I just wanted to. In fact, I actually was very surprised by my ATA score, and so was the doctor. But it's all because I was determined. And so, yeah, it made sense. And I decided, okay, I'm a creative person. I'm actually very visually intelligent. So I'm going to go to uni and work real hard. And so I decided to go to Swinburne University. And I did digital media because I didn't know anything about design or computers. And I thought, well, I can do a bit of anything and try and work out what I liked. But the thing was, I was really bad at computers. I had never touched a computer up until university. I was like, I wrote all my exams by hand, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. So this next slide is actually really embarrassing for me, but in my second year, I decided to take 3D, and it was only by chance that I took it because a friend was like, oh, you should try this because you might be good at it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And at this point, I was actually going very well at university. This is my first 3D render. It's terrible. I just passed this subject. I accidentally extruded every single face on top of each other and didn't know how to fix it. And that's why it's so jaggedy. And look at those shadows, they're awful. Bloody mental ray. But because I almost failed this subject and I hated 3D, I decided that I was like, well, Jess hates almost failing, so I have to get good at this. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I didn't get a HD, so I'm like, fuck. So I spent 4 months of my own time using digital tutors, which is now called Pluralsight, to learn Maya. And I made this guy. It's the Herosaurus, of course. I don't have the full render. This is all I had from a previous show reel because I don't have all my stuff in London. And I was really proud of this because I learned how to rig, texture, model, animate, everything. And I was like, 3D is easy now. And so I went back to uni and made this guy in my class. And this is also the only render I have of it as well. And I got 99% on this. I was so pissed off that 1%. But the teacher was like, oh, well, you can't get that 1% because your PDF had double pages on it and they were repeated, and I can't give you 100%. I was like, whatever. But with those two projects, I actually managed to get 2 internships in my third year of university, which were crucial for my career. I learned how to work with people who actually want to work on projects with you, who are not just there to pass, which was amazing. So it was like other people who are just as excited by a project, taking on client feedback and just using new programs. I learned 3ds Max in those jobs. And then that led me to getting a full-time job, part-time job at Swinburne University in my honours year, which I thought, oh, it's my honours, I'm not going to work at all. And I still took the job, and I did astrophysics simulations and visualizations for them, and I had no idea what I'd was doing, but or like on the part that I didn't really know how to do 3D for what they wanted, and also because I don't understand astrophysics. So it's really hard to work with scientists, by the way. They don't get humor. So I was so exhausted after university, and I was like, screw this. I'm not going straight into work. I don't even know what the hell I want to do when I finish. And so every time I feel like this, I go on holidays. So I took a couple of months off, and at this point, I was like, I want to get into visual effects. And I want to work at Allura, which was where my friend worked, which is now Method. And I was like, I don't know exactly where I'm going to specialize in, but I just want to work there with my friend. And actually, while I was just laying next to the pool in Queensland, I was on my phone and I got an email and it said, "Hey, Jess, would you like to do an internship at Joomla?" And I was like, I'm not doing anything, so I may as well try. And so I cut my holidays short and I went over in Melbourne and did an internship for only 3 weeks, which was supposed to be 3 months. Because I got hired to do this job, I had to UV map about 40 cars, and it had to be done in a very tight deadline, and no one knew how to UV map. So I spent like a whole month just UV mapping and texturing all these bloody cars. I hate cars, by the way, but learned lots about these cars. I didn't know that NASCAR was a thing. I do now, but that same year, I actually found out about Node. You guys might not know this logo, but you might know it by this logo. Node was freaking amazing. It still is, guys. It's awesome. But for me, I had never heard of a festival for animators. I was like, holy moly. And when I actually went to my first Node, because I've been to every single one, guys, I was so impressed by Australian talent that, for one, they were able to do things that look like it was for the movies, but they're not a movie studio. So there's these people like just doing projects by themselves that look friggin' amazing. I was like, man, people can do this? And one person that I had a really awesome chat to at the after party was Scott Gearson. Another plug for Scott. He spoke that year about versatility. And for me, this was like my light bulb moment. It was like, wow, he's talking about using every type of program or using different techniques and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter how you do it, you can do it. And I was like, I don't want to be a specialist anymore. I want to be just like him. So I was just like, oh my God. So that was really creepy, but yeah. The next year for Node, I decided, well, I'm going to do my own project and try and see if I can pull it off. So I did this one, and I didn't really want to win. I just wanted to see if I could actually do a whole project on my own. And I was pretty proud with this. I learned so many new techniques I had never used before. It doesn't look great, but I did it in like about a month outside of work. And yeah, I felt really confident about myself, the fact that I had been able to do a project on my own. And also the fact that there was a deadline was the reason why I was so I felt like I was able to pull something off, because I'm a bloody perfectionist and I can keep tweaking something. I have so many personal projects out there that have never seen the light of day because I'm just not happy with it. So with a deadline, I felt like it's just done. So after this project, I was like, I had a new vision that I was like, I want to do just characters. So I packed up from Joomla after 2 years and I moved to Graham Studio. So Mike, Marley and Dom are here today. You should say hi to them. We did such amazing work there. They were so patient with me learning a whole bunch of new techniques like rigging in Maya and like different rendering things and animation and just working on personal projects alongside doing client work as well. So yeah, they were like my second family. And speaking of cool people, I'm sure you all remember this one. Glenn Morales, my best friend, we both worked at Jumbler together, and we're still best friends, guys. Yay! We worked on this project together because we both inspire each other, and he's like an amazing designer. And I always wanted to work with him, but at Jumbler, we never actually got to work together. So the year before, we actually did our idents separately, but in the same room, usually on the weekends. So we thought, well, we're going to do one together. And it pulled off. Like, we pretty much did this in a month's time, in our own time, and I probably spent a little bit too much of my personal time on this. But I'm proud to say that this is our work. But also, I still have imposter syndrome, so I still felt like I didn't deserve the award, especially with all the amazing talent. Like, you guys saw all those idents. It's like, I don't deserve that award. Glenn is friggin' amazing, and I'm like, oh, just not as good as him. And I'm like self-taught 3D, so I thought, well, the way that I make things might not be right. I don't want to show people that kind of stuff. And the thing with me is, when I feel like this, I go on a holiday. So I decided to go to Vietnam with my girlfriends. They were having a hard time with work as well, and we all would bitch about work. And while I was at work, I was on Instagram, as most people are usually on, and I noticed that Animade was hiring, and I was like, well, I'll just send my 2018 show reel off and see if they like it. And so I did, and then I came back and they actually emailed me, and I was like, what? No way. You, hello? And then they're like, oh, yeah, let's have an interview. So I Skype called them, and then I had another Skype call, and then I had another Skype call, and they were like, you got the job. And I was like, what? I was like, hell no. And I was like, at this point, I really, really wanted to go move overseas, because I've always dreamt of working overseas. Not necessarily in London, but hey, it's overseas, so who cares? But I had to get my life together, and they wanted me to literally get on a plane like tomorrow and then get there. And I was like, I still have to quit my job, and I need to pack my stuff away and, get a visa. And they were like, oh, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe we'll talk about it in 6 months. And I was so sad. I was like, oh my God, I should have just said yes. I was like, what have I done? And at this point, I hadn't told anyone that I had even done these interviews. And I was like, okay, I'm too embarrassed to say that I blew this. But then a month later, they actually said, hey, no, come in the new year. And I was like, fuck yeah, woo. So I moved to London, and it's been friggin' amazing. Like, the weather's crappy, but the people are amazing, and Animade's been really welcoming, and I've been able to travel because I love traveling. And I still feel like I'm not worthy of the job. But the difference with me now is, being like surrounded by amazing talent, is I'm thirsty for knowledge now. So I use that fear of failing on things, and I just go, well, I just got to get better. And so at Animade, they have been really supportive in learning new techniques, and I've been like playing with design, and I started using Cinema 4D, surprisingly. And actually, with all this personal work that I've been doing, I caught the eyes of Maxon, who are the guys that make Cinema 4D. And 6 months into Animade, they asked me, hey, can you come to LA and speak at SIGGRAPH for 50 minutes and talk about like how to use the program? And I was like, what, me teach? Like, am I even qualified? Like, I barely even know the program. Like, what the hell? What am I going to teach? And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to do it. I definitely don't want to do it. And the guys were like, no, you should do it. It's like, will be amazing for your career, and we love what you do. Surely you can teach someone something. And I was like, sure, okay, I'll do a talk. And so I went up to LA in June and spoke in front of, I think there was like 500 people online live at the time, but there was like maybe 100 people in front of me. And yeah, if you want to learn about topology, watch my SIGGRAPH talk. Around the same time, I actually got asked to talk at Node. Woo. And I was like, what the hell? God, no, I can't do 2 speeches in 1 year, which is funny because Nydia Diaz has done like 1 million this year, but I was like, 2 is too many. But hey, I'm up here now speaking, and it's terrifying. But I also, like, for me, like, I've gone to a lot of these kind of events. I've been to Blend, I've gone to Camp MoGraph this year, I've been to Node every other year, and just like seeing amazing artists, I'm super inspired by everyone. And I want you guys to feel inspired by me, but also just be yourself and don't be me, because I'm not a good influence anyway, but I doubt myself all the time, but you guys shouldn't doubt yourselves. But a big thing for me is I notice a lot of people always trying to be someone else. Like, I've seen so many people trying to be Beeple or something like that. Like, it's like, okay, he does it well, but what do you do well? Like, bring yourself to the table, you know, just be yourself, be proud about what you're doing and not what someone else has been doing and being successful with. And another thing that I've learned is harnessing your fear, because that helps you really like feel like thirsty for knowledge and staying inquisitive, because in this career you gotta stay inquisitive because things are always changing in this industry. But because I'm so passionate about my job, is I don't find this hard to do, and I love like learning new things. Every personal project I do, I always have to learn something new. And the thing with like, what is success anyway? Like, is it having kids? Is it buying a house? Is it creative freedom? Is it money? I don't know. Everyone has different forms of success. But for me, success is the process and not the result. Like, I'm not in this industry for the money, but I love what I do, and I would still like to live comfortably. But every step of the way, I've enjoyed everything. And I just want to stand up here and tell you guys that my story is individual, but you all have amazing stories yourselves. And you could be standing up here and talking, and maybe my life is really boring. I don't know if I made everyone fall asleep right now after a meal. But yeah, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for not falling asleep.